Before we begin, share your own grandma stories in the comments and don't forget to like and subscribe so we can keep these memories alive together. I've always been good at pretending, not the kind of pretending children do when they play make-believe in the backyard, turning sticks into swords and cardboard boxes into castles. No, this was different. This was the kind of pretending that comes with age, with necessity, with the quiet understanding that sometimes survival means letting people believe what they need to believe about you. My name is Vivian Hargrove, and I'm 74 years old. To most people who know me now, I'm just another elderly woman shuffling through the fluorescent-lit aisles of the grocery store, squinting at price tags and forgetting where I park my car. I wear comfortable shoes with Velcro straps. I keep butterscotch candies in my purse. I say things like now. What was I saying? And oh, these senior moments with a self-deprecating laugh that puts everyone at ease. But here's what they don't know. I remember everything. Every single thing. The trouble started about 3 years ago, after my husband Bernard passed away. Heart attack. Quick and clean, the doctor said, as if death could ever be clean. One moment he was complaining about the neighbor's dog barking at all hours, and the next he was gone. 52 years of marriage ended in the time it takes to brew a pot of coffee. We had 3 children. Michael, our oldest at 48, worked in finance in Manhattan. Sarah, 45, was a real estate agent in Connecticut. And then there was Daniel, our youngest at 41, who managed a car dealership in New Jersey. Good kids, all of them, smart, successful. Bernard and I used to marvel at how well they turned out. How they'd exceeded every expectation we'd had when we were young parents struggling to make ends meet in our cramped 2-bedroom apartment in Queens. After Bernard died, the kids started calling more often. At first, I was touched. Michael would phone every Sunday evening. Sarah would text me pictures of her twin boys, Jeremy and Marcus, playing soccer. Daniel would stop by on his way home from work, bringing takeout from whatever restaurant he'd discovered that week. "You shouldn't be alone, Mom," they'd say. "We worry about you." I'd smile and tell them I was fine. The house felt empty without Bernard, sure, but I had my routines. My garden, my book club on Thursday afternoons, my volunteer work at the community center, teaching English to recent immigrants. But then I started noticing the looks, the concerned glances they'd exchange when they thought I wasn't watching, the way their voices would take on that careful, patient tone people use with children, or the very old it began with small things. I'd be telling Sarah a story about something that happened at book club, and she'd interrupt gently. "Mom, you told me that already last week, remember?" The thing was, I hadn't. It was a different story, about a different book. But when I tried to explain, she just patted my hand and smiled. "It's okay, Mom. We all forget things." Then Michael started leaving notes around the house during his visits. "Remember to take your pills," next to the medication organizer Bernard had bought me years ago. "Lock the doors at night, tape to the back door. Call if you need anything," with all 3 of their numbers listed. As if I hadn't been dialing those numbers from memory for decades. The worst was Daniel. Sweet, gentle Daniel, who'd always been my baby, even at 6'2" with graying temples. He started dropping by at odd hours, letting himself in with the spare key Bernard had given him years ago. I'd be in the middle of watching a movie or reading a book, and suddenly he'd be there, checking the stove, peering into the refrigerator, asking if I'd eaten lunch. "Just wanted to make sure everything's okay," he'd say. One afternoon, about 6 months after Bernard's funeral, all 3 of them showed up together, unannounced. I was in the garden, deadheading my roses, when I heard their cars pull into the driveway. My stomach dropped. In our family, unannounced group visits meant one thing: intervention. I wiped the dirt from my hands and went inside to meet them. They were seated around the kitchen table, my kitchen table, where Bernard and I had eaten thousands of meals, where we'd helped them with homework and played board games on rainy Sundays. Now they sat there like a tribunal, with matching expressions of concern that didn't quite hide something else, something that looked almost like impatience. "Mom, sit down," Michael said, pulling out a chair. "We need to talk." I sat, folded my hands in my lap, waited. Sarah reached across the table and took my hand. Her skin was soft, moisturized. Mine was spotted and thin, the veins visible beneath the surface like roads on a map. Mom, we're worried about you, she began. We think you might need some help, Michael added. Daniel wouldn't meet my eyes. He was studying his phone, his jaw tight. What kind of help? I asked, though I already knew. Sarah glanced at Michael. Some silent communication passed between them. You've been forgetting things, Mom, she said gently. More and more. Last week you called me 3 times asking what time we were having dinner, even though I'd told you it was cancelled because Marcus had the flu, and you left the stove on overnight 2 weeks ago, Michael said. Thank God Daniel stopped by and noticed. I opened my mouth to argue I'd made tea that evening. I was certain I'd turned it off, but Sarah squeezed my hand. It's nothing to be ashamed of, she said. It's just age. It happens to everyone. Not to everyone, I said quietly. Your father was sharp as a tack until the end. Dad was different, Daniel said, finally looking up from his phone. And we're not trying to make you feel bad, Mom. We just want to make sure you're safe. Safe, I repeated. We've been looking at some options, Michael said. He pulled out a folder from his briefcase. Inside were glossy brochures featuring smiling elderly people in sun-drenched common rooms, playing cards and doing watercolor paintings. There are some really nice assisted living facilities nearby. We've already toured a few. The air left my lungs. You want to put me in a home? Not a home, Mom, Sarah said quickly. It's called senior living. It's like an apartment, but with support. Nurses on staff. Activities. You'd make friends. I have friends. I've always been good at pretending. Not the kind of pretending children do when they play make-believe in the backyard, turning sticks into swords and cardboard boxes into castles. No, this was different. This was the kind of pretending that comes with age, with necessity, with the quiet understanding that sometimes survival means letting people believe what they need to believe about you. My name is Vivian Hargrove, and I'm 74 years old. To most people who know me now, I'm just another elderly woman shuffling through the fluorescent-lit aisles of the grocery store, squinting at price tags and forgetting where I park my car. I wear comfortable shoes with Velcro straps. I keep butterscotch candies in my purse. I say things like now. What was I saying? And oh, these senior moments with a self-deprecating laugh that puts everyone at ease. But here's what they don't know. I remember everything. Every single thing. The trouble started about 3 years ago, after my husband Bernard passed away. Heart attack. Quick and clean, the doctor said, as if death could ever be clean. One moment he was complaining about the neighbor's dog barking at all hours, and the next he was gone. 52 years of marriage ended in the time it takes to brew a pot of coffee. We had 3 children. Michael, our oldest at 48, worked in finance in Manhattan. Sarah, 45, was a real estate agent in Connecticut. And then there was Daniel, our youngest at 41, who managed a car dealership in New Jersey. Good kids, all of them, smart, successful. Bernard and I used to marvel at how well they turned out, how they'd exceeded every expectation we'd had when we were young parents struggling to make ends meet in our cramped 2-bedroom apartment in Queens. After Bernard died, the kids started calling more often. At first, I was touched. Michael would phone every Sunday evening. Sarah would text me pictures of her twin boys, Jeremy and Marcus, playing soccer. Daniel would stop by on his way home from work, bringing takeout from whatever restaurant he'd discovered that week. You shouldn't be alone, Mom, they'd say. We worry about you. I'd smile and tell them I was fine. The house felt empty without Bernard, sure, but I had my routines. My garden, my book club on Thursday afternoons, my volunteer work at the community center, teaching English to recent immigrants. But then I started noticing the looks, the concerned glances they'd exchange when they thought I wasn't watching, the way their voices would take on that careful, patient tone people use with children, or the very old it began with small things. I'd be telling Sarah a story about something that happened at book club, and she'd interrupt gently. Mom, you told me that already. Last week, remember? The thing was, I hadn't. It was a different story, about a different book. But when I tried to explain, she just patted my hand and smiled. It's okay, Mom. We all forget things. Then Michael started leaving notes around the house during his visits. Remember to take your pills next to the medication organizer Bernard had bought me years ago. Lock the doors at night, tape to the back door. Call if you need anything with all 3 of their numbers listed. As if I hadn't been dialing those numbers from memory for decades. The worst was Daniel. Sweet, gentle Daniel, who'd always been my baby, even at 6'2" with graying temples. He started dropping by at odd hours, letting himself in with the spare key Bernard had given him years ago. I'd be in the middle of watching a movie or reading a book, and suddenly he'd be there, checking the stove, peering into the refrigerator, asking if I'd eaten lunch. Just wanted to make sure everything's okay, he'd say. One afternoon, about 6 months after Bernard's funeral, all 3 of them showed up together, unannounced. I was in the garden, deadheading my roses, when I heard their cars pull into the driveway. My stomach dropped. In our family, unannounced group visits meant one thing: intervention. I wiped the dirt from my hands and went inside to meet them. They were seated around the kitchen table, my kitchen table, where Bernard and I had eaten thousands of meals, where we'd helped them with homework and played board games on rainy Sundays. Now they sat there like a tribunal, with matching expressions of concern that didn't quite hide something else. Something that looked almost like impatience. "Mom, sit down," Michael said, pulling out a chair. "We need to talk." I sat, folded my hands in my lap, waited. Sarah reached across the table and took my hand. Her skin was soft, moisturized. Mine was spotted and thin, the veins visible beneath the surface like roads on a map. "Mom, we're worried about you," she began. "We think you might need some help," Michael added. "Daniel wouldn't meet my eyes. He was studying and you'd still see us all the time," Michael continued, as if I hadn't spoken. "More than now, probably, since you'd be closer to Daniel. This one facility is only 15 minutes from his house." I looked at each of them in turn. My children, the babies I'd carried and birthed and nursed and raised. The toddlers I'd chased around playgrounds. The teenagers I'd stayed up worrying about when they missed curfew. The adults I'd been so proud to watch build their own lives, and now they were trying to put me away. "I'm not going," I said. "Mom, I'm not going," I repeated, more firmly. "This is my home. Your father and I bought this house 40 years ago. I'm not leaving it because you think I'm losing my mind." "Nobody thinks that," Daniel said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Then what? What do you think?" Silence. Finally, Sarah spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "We think you need help, Mom. More help than we can give you while we're trying to manage our own families and careers. This isn't about punishment. It's about making sure you're taken care of. I can take care of myself. Can you?" Michael's voice was sharp. "Because from where we're sitting, it doesn't look that way. The forgetting, the confusion. You called me last Tuesday asking when Dad's doctor appointment was." "Mom, Dad's been dead for 6 months." The room went silent. I felt something crack inside my chest. "That's not true," I whispered. "Mom, that's not true." My voice broke. "I never said that. I asked you when your appointment was, for your physical. You told me you'd scheduled it for the following week. Why are you lying?" They exchanged those looks again. Those terrible, pitying looks. "Okay, Mom," Sarah said soothingly. "Okay, maybe we misunderstood. But there have been other things. You have to admit that." I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. "I think you should all leave now." "Mom, please leave. I'm tired. I want to rest." They gathered their things slowly, reluctantly. At the door, Michael turned back. "Just think about it, okay? Look at the brochures. We're not trying to hurt you. We love you." I closed the door without responding. That night, I sat in Bernard's recliner. I still thought of it as his, even though he'd never sit in it again, and cried until my throat was raw. The house was dark except for the lamp beside me, casting long shadows across the living room. Our wedding photo hung on the wall across from me. Bernard in his ill-fitting suit, me in the simple white dress my mother had made. We looked impossibly young, impossibly happy. What should I do? I asked the empty room, asked Bernard, wherever he was. The silence was my only answer. Over the next few weeks, I started paying closer attention, watching, listening, taking mental notes of every interaction with my children. Michael called and asked if I'd remembered to pay the electric bill. I had. I told him I'd paid it online, like I did every month. He seemed disappointed, though he tried to hide it. Sarah dropped by with groceries I hadn't asked for, insisting I needed to keep my strength up. She opened my refrigerator and made a show of checking expiration dates, tossing out a yogurt that was one day past its best-by date. "You can't be too careful, Mom," she said. Daniel started coming by even more frequently. I'd wake up from a nap to find him in my house, just checking on things. Once, I came home from book club to discover he'd reorganized my entire medicine cabinet. Some of these prescriptions were old, he explained when I asked why. "I threw them out. Can't risk you taking the wrong thing. Those were Bernard's," I said. "I was keeping them in case." "In case what, Mom?" "In case he comes back from the dead and needs his blood pressure medication." The cruelty of it took my breath away. This wasn't my son. My Daniel would never speak to me that way. That's when I realized what was happening. They were building a case. Every forgotten bill that wasn't actually forgotten. Every expired food item that was barely expired. Every supposedly confused phone call that hadn't been confused at all. They were collecting evidence, ammunition for their argument that I couldn't live independently anymore. But why? Why were they so determined to move me out of my home? The answer came on a Tuesday afternoon in October. I'd gone to the grocery store and forgotten my wallet. Embarrassing, yes, but hardly evidence of dementia. I came home, retrieved my wallet, and headed back out. That's when I heard voices coming from inside the house. I'd left through the front door. The voices were coming from the kitchen at the back of the house. Someone was inside. My first instinct was to call 911. My second was to recognize the voices. Michael, Sarah, Daniel, they were in my house. Without permission, without my knowledge. I stood on my front porch, my hand frozen on the doorknob, and listened. "Has to be worth at least 700,000, maybe more in this market," Sarah was saying. "The lot alone is valuable. Someone would tear down the house and rebuild. Split 3 ways. That's over 200,000 each," Michael added. "More than enough to cover the assisted living costs for years, if she'd just cooperate," Daniel said. "But she's being stubborn about it, so we make her cooperate," Michael replied. "We're doing this for her own good anyway. She's not safe here. It's only a matter of time before she really hurts herself. And if she doesn't hurt herself?" Sarah asked. A pause. A terrible, heavy pause. "Then we have the documentation," Michael said finally. "The forgetfulness, the confusion. We can get medical professionals involved. Have her evaluated. If she's deemed incompetent, we can get power of attorney and make the decision for her." My legs began to shake. I gripped the doorknob to steady myself. "I don't know," Daniel said. "That seems extreme. She's still Mom. She's still her. For now," Michael said. "But dementia doesn't get better, Dan. It only gets worse. We're actually doing her a favor by moving her now, before she declines further." "You keep saying that," Sarah said softly. "But is she really declining? Or are we just saying she is?" Another pause. "Does it matter?" Michael asked. "Either way, she can't stay here alone. It's not safe. And we can't be expected to put our lives on hold to babysit her. We have families, careers. This is the best solution for everyone. Including us," Sarah said. "Including us." Michael agreed. I heard footsteps approaching the back door. They were leaving. I quietly opened the front door and slipped inside, then made noise coming down the stairs as if I'd been up there the whole time. "Hello?" I called. "Is someone here?" "Just us, Mom." Daniel appeared from the kitchen. "We used our keys. Hope that's okay." "Of course," I said, forcing a smile. "I was just upstairs changing the sheets on the guest bed. Didn't hear you come in." They stayed for another hour, making small talk, asking how I was feeling, watching me with those careful, evaluating eyes. The whole time, my mind was racing. They wanted my house. They wanted me gone so they could sell it and split the money. And they were willing to lie about my mental state to make it happen. After they left, I sat in Bernard's chair again and thought, really thought, about what I'd heard, about what it meant, about what I should do. I could confront them, but they'd deny it, and then I'd lose even the pretense of our relationship. I could get a lawyer. But legal battles took time and money, and I had no proof of what I'd heard, or I could be smart about this. That night, I went online and ordered a small digital voice recorder, the kind journalists use. Small enough to fit in a pocket, with hours of recording time. It arrived 2 days later in discreet packaging, and then I waited. I also stopped arguing with them about the memory issues they claimed I had. When Sarah said I'd told her something twice, I apologized and said, "Oh, you're right. I'm so sorry." When Michael left notes, I thanked him profusely. When Daniel reorganized my things, I acted confused and grateful. I played the part they wanted me to play, the forgetful, declining old woman who needed to be managed and eventually moved aside. And all the while, I recorded everything, every visit, every phone call, every conversation. I kept a recorder in my cardigan pocket, always on, always listening. I'd gotten good at pressing record before they arrived, at hiding it when necessary, at downloading the files to my laptop late at night. The things I heard would have broken my heart if I'd had any heart left to break. Sarah talking to Michael on my back porch. The sooner we can move her, the sooner we can list the house. I've already got a buyer who'd pay cash. Daniel on the phone in my driveway. I know, honey. Just a few more months. Once we get the money from the house sale, we can finally afford that trip to Europe. Mom would want us to be happy. Michael in my kitchen, talking to someone I couldn't identify. It's not about the money. Well, okay. It's partly about the money, but she really can't be trusted alone. Last week okay, fine. She didn't actually do anything last week, but she could have. That's the point. The most damning recording came in November, the week before Thanksgiving. All three of them were at my house, ostensibly helping me prepare for the holiday. I'd gone upstairs to get some serving dishes from the linen closet, leaving the recorder hidden in a potted plant on the kitchen counter. "This is taking too long," Michael said. "We've been doing this for months. She's not getting worse. She's not making any major mistakes. At this rate, we'll never be able to justify moving her. So what do you suggest?" Sarah asked. "Maybe we need to help things along." "What does that mean?" "I mean, maybe we need to create some incidents. Nothing that would hurt her, obviously. Just things that look bad. Things that would support our case if we needed to go the legal route." "Like what?" Daniel's voice was tight, but no, it was all there, clear as day. Their voices, their words, their betrayal. I made copies of everything, saved files to the cloud, burned them onto CDs, put one set in my safety deposit box at the bank, sent another set to my old friend Patricia, who lived in Florida, with instructions to keep them safe, and then I waited for them to make their move. It came the week after Thanksgiving. I hosted the holiday at my house, like I did every year. 23 people, my children, their spouses, their children, a few cousins and their families. I cooked a turkey that was perfectly golden, made my famous sweet potato casserole, set the table with Bernard's mother's china. Everything was perfect. I made sure of it. And yet, afterwards, I overheard Michael telling his wife, "Did you see how confused she got about dinner time? She kept asking when people were arriving, even after they were already here." I hadn't. I'd asked once, early in the morning, and then never again. But his wife nodded sympathetically, believing him without question. The following Monday, Michael called. "Mom, we need to talk. Can all of us come over tomorrow?" "Of course," I said. "I'll make coffee." I knew what was coming. This was it. The final push. I spent that evening preparing. I laid out the recorder where they'd see it. I made sure my laptop was charged and ready. I called Patricia and told her to expect news soon. "Are you sure about this, Viv?" she asked. "Once you do this, there's no going back." "There's already no going back," I said. They made sure of that Tuesday afternoon. They arrived together again. Same setup as before. All three of them, sitting around my kitchen table, with me in the hot seat. But this time, I was ready. "Mom," Michael began. "We've been patient. We've tried to give you time to adjust to the idea. But we can't wait anymore. Your memory is getting worse. You're becoming a danger to yourself." "Am I?" "Yes," Sarah said firmly. You left the stove on again last week. You forgot about a doctor's appointment. You got lost driving home from the grocery store. I hadn't done any of those things. But I didn't argue. Not yet. We've found a place, Daniel said, pulling out a brochure. Brookside Senior Living. It's beautiful, Mom. Your own apartment, 3 meals a day, activities, nurses on staff around the clock. You'll be safe there, safe. I repeated. We've already put down a deposit, Michael said. You move in next month. We'll help you pack, help you settle in. We'll visit all the time, and my house? They exchanged glances. We'll take care of it, Sarah said. Get it ready to sell. You don't need to worry about any of that. I nodded slowly. Let the silence stretch. Watch them start to relax, thinking I was going to accept this quietly. Then I reached into my cardigan pocket and pulled out the recorder. I placed it on the table between us. Their faces went white. What is that? Michael asked, though his voice told me he already knew. I pressed play. His own voice filled my kitchen. Has to be worth at least 700,000, maybe more in this market. The lot alone is valuable. Sarah's face drained of color. Daniel closed his eyes. I let it play. Let them hear themselves discussing my house like it was already theirs. Let them hear their cold calculations about splitting the money. Let them hear Michael's suggestion to help things along by gaslighting me into appearing incompetent. When it finished, I stopped the recording. The silence that followed was deafening. Mom, Sarah whispered. We can explain. Explain what? My voice was steady, calm. Explain how you've been lying about my memory for months. Explain how you've been manipulating situations to make me look confused. Explain how you've been planning to sell my home out from under me so you can take a European vacation. Daniel flinched at that last part. We were trying to help you, Michael said, but his voice lacked conviction. Help me? I laughed, and it sounded bitter even to my own ears. You were trying to help yourselves. To my house. To my money. You weren't worried about my safety. You were worried I might live too long and spend the inheritance you'd already counted in your heads. That's not fair, Sarah said, tears starting to stream down her face. We do worry about you. Yes, the house is valuable. And yes, we'd need to sell it to pay for your care. But that doesn't mean we don't love you. Love. I tasted the word, found it sour. You have a funny way of showing it, making me doubt my own mind, treating me like I'm already gone, planning my future without me, like I'm a child who can't be trusted to make my own decisions. Because you can't. Michael slammed his hand on the table. Mom, I'm sorry, but someone has to say it. You're 74 years old. You live alone in a house that's too big for you. Something could happen, a fall, a fire, a medical emergency, and no one would know until it was too late. So your solution is to warehouse me in a facility and cash in on my home? That's your version of caring? We're not warehousing you, Daniel said quietly. Brookside is nice. Really nice. You'd have your own space, but you'd also have support. Community. It's not a punishment, Mom. It's just the next chapter. The next chapter, I repeated. How poetic. Except you're not asking me to turn the page, you're ripping the book out of my hands. I stood up, walked to my laptop on the counter, and opened it. With a few clicks, I pulled up a folder containing all my recordings, neatly organized by date. I have months of recordings, I said. Every visit, every phone call, every conversation you thought I couldn't hear. I have you discussing how to manipulate me. I have you admitting that I'm not actually declining, but deciding to move me anyway. I have you planning to gaslight me into incompetence. I turned the screen toward them. Let them see the long list of files. I've made copies, I continued. My lawyer has a set. My friend Patricia in Florida has a set. I have a set in my safety deposit box. And I've already sent a detailed letter to Elder Protective Services, outlining what you've been doing. That got their attention. Michael's face went from white to red. You called APS on us? Your own children? You were planning to have me declared incompetent. I shot back. You were planning to take away my autonomy, my home, my life as I know it, all based on lies. What did you expect me to do? Go quietly? We never wanted to declare you incompetent, Sarah said, wiping her eyes. That was just contingency planning. In case you refused to see reason. Reason? You mean in case I refuse to cooperate with your scheme? It's not a scheme. Michael stood up, his chair scraping across the floor. God, Mom, why are you being so paranoid? So we talked about the house. So what? You can take it with you. Eventually, it will need to be sold. We were just planning ahead. Planning ahead would be having a conversation with me about my wishes. What you were doing was planning around me, behind my back, while pretending to be concerned about my welfare. We are concerned about your welfare, Daniel said. He hadn't looked at me since I'd started playing the recording. Maybe we went about it the wrong way, but the concern is real, Mom. You're alone. This house is too much for one person. We worry. Then visit me because you love me. Not because you're checking to see if I've declined enough to justify your plans. Help me because I'm your mother, not because you want to move me out of the way. That's not what we're doing, Sarah insisted. Isn't it? I closed the laptop. Tell me something. If this house was worthless, if it was a tiny apartment in a bad neighborhood, would you be so concerned about my ability to live independently? Or is your concern proportional to the property value? None of them answered. That's what I thought. Michael grabbed his briefcase. This is pointless. You're clearly determined to see us as the villains here. Fine, we're done trying to help. When you fall and can't get up, when you have a medical emergency and there's no one there to help you, don't come crying to us. I won't, I said, because I'll have already called someone who actually cares about me, not just my assets. He stormed out. Sarah hesitated, looking between me and the door, tears still streaming down her face. Mom, I'm sorry, she whispered. I never wanted. I didn't mean for it to be like this. But it is like this, I said. You can't unring that bell, Sarah. She left without another word. Daniel remained seated, his head in his hands. Danny, I said softly, using the nickname I hadn't used since he was small. Why didn't you stop them? I heard you, on the recordings. You were uncomfortable with it. You knew it was wrong. So why didn't you speak up? He looked up at me, and I was startled to see that he was crying too. Because I'm weak, he said. Because Michael's always been the strong one, the leader. And because... He took a shaky breath. Because part of me agreed with them. Not about the gaslighting or the manipulation, but about the house. About you being alone. Mom, I wake up at 3 in the morning sometimes, terrified that something's happened to you and I don't know. That you're lying on the floor somewhere, hurt, and I'm 30 minutes away, asleep, useless. So your solution is to move me into a facility where I know no one, where I'll be even more isolated than I am here. At least there'd be people around. Staff, nurses, at least someone would find you. I don't need finding, Daniel. I need respecting. I need my children to trust that I know my own mind and my own limitations. I need you to treat me like an adult, not a problem to be managed. But you are an adult with limitations, he said. We all are. And sometimes we need help seeing them. Then help me see them honestly. Don't manufacture evidence. Don't lie about phone calls I never made or stoves I never left on. Don't plot to sell my home while pretending it's for my own good. Be honest with me. That's all I've ever asked for. Daniel stood slowly, like his legs were having trouble holding him up. I don't know if we can come back from this, he said. I don't either. He left, and I was alone. I stood in my kitchen, the kitchen where I'd fed my babies, where Bernard and I had shared thousands of meals, where we'd celebrated birthdays and holidays and ordinary Tuesdays, and I let myself cry. Not for what I'd lost, but for what had been taken from me long before this confrontation. The trust, the belief that my children would always have my best interests at heart, the certainty that family meant something more than property values and inheritance planning. The next few weeks were hard. None of them called. None of them visited. Thanksgiving came and went without a word. I spent it with Patricia, who flew up from Florida to keep me company. You did the right thing, she told me over turkey sandwiches and wine. Standing up for yourself, not letting them push you around. Then why does it feel so terrible? Because they're your kids. And no matter how old they get, no matter what they do, some part of you will always want their love and approval. That's not weakness, Viv. That's being human. Christmas was worse. I put up a small tree, more out of habit than any real holiday spirit. I wrapped presents for my grandchildren Jeremy, Marcus, Michael's daughter Sophia, Daniel's son Cameron, but I had no way to give them. No invitation to Christmas dinner, no phone call to coordinate visits. I was alone, truly, completely alone. On Christmas Eve, I sat in Bernard's chair and looked at our wedding photo again. I hope I did the right thing, I whispered. I hope you'd be proud of me for standing up for myself. But God, Bernard, I miss them. I miss my babies. Even after everything, I miss them. The doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. For a moment, I considered not answering, but curiosity got the better of me. Daniel stood on my doorstep, holding a poinsettia. Behind him in the driveway, I could see his wife Rachel and their son Cameron in the car. I know I don't have the right to be here, he said, and if you want me to leave, I will. But I couldn't let Christmas pass without at least trying. I stood there holding the door, my heart pounding. Rachel and I have been in therapy, he continued, individual and couples. Because what we did, what I went along with, it wasn't okay. It wasn't who I want to be, and I know an apology can't fix it. But I need you to know that I'm sorry. Really, truly sorry. Not sorry I got caught. Sorry for what I did, what I was willing to do. Why? I asked. Why did you do it, Danny? You were always the gentle one, the thoughtful one. How did you let Michael talk you into this? Because I was scared, he said simply. Dad died, and suddenly you seemed so fragile. I kept thinking about all the ways I could lose you too. And Michael had this plan, this solution that would keep you safe. It seemed like the answer. It took me too long to realize that what he was really offering was a way for me to stop worrying, not a way to actually help you. And the money? The house? He had the grace to look ashamed. I won't lie and say it didn't matter. Rachel and I have been struggling financially. The dealership hasn't been doing well. We're behind on our mortgage. The idea of having some cushion, some security, it was tempting. But I swear to you, Mom, that's not why I went along with it. I would have done the same thing even if the house was worth nothing. That almost makes it worse, I said. That you were willing to uproot my entire life, not even for money, but just for your own peace of mind. I know. And I'm so sorry. I looked past him at the car, where Rachel was watching nervously and Cameron was playing on some device. Oblivious. What do you want from me, Daniel? Nothing, he said. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I'm working on being better. That I'm trying to understand what I did wrong and why. And that I hope, someday, maybe we can start again. Not forget what happened, but move forward anyway. I thought about it. Thought about all the recordings, all the betrayals, all the sleepless nights spent wondering how my children had turned into strangers. But I also thought about Daniel at 5 years old, climbing into my lap when he had a nightmare. Daniel at 12, crying on my shoulder when his best friend moved away. Daniel at 23, calling me first when he got engaged, his voice shaking with excitement. He was still in there somewhere. The boy I'd raised, the man I'd hoped he'd become. I'm not ready to forget, I said finally. And I'm not ready to have you back in my life the way things were. But I'm willing to try something new, something honest. Hope flickered across his face. We can start with coffee, I said. Once a week. You and me. No Rachel. No Cameron. No Michael or Sarah. Just us. We talk. Really talk. About what happened. About what you were thinking. About what I was feeling. We be honest with each other. Even when it's hard. Maybe especially when it's hard. I'd like that, he said. I'd really like that. And Daniel, if I ever catch you lying to me again, if I ever find out you're manipulating me or talking about me behind my back or planning my life without my input, we're done. Permanently. Do you understand? Yes, I understand. Good. I took the poinsettia from him. Merry Christmas, Danny. Merry Christmas, Mom. He turned to leave, then stopped. For what it's worth, Michael and Sarah are still. They're still where they were. Maybe worse. Michael's angry that you involved APS. Sarah's convinced you're going to cut them out of your will. They're not ready to admit they did anything wrong. Then they're not ready to be in my life, I said. And that's their choice, not mine. He nodded and walked back to his car. I closed the door and stood in the foyer, holding the poinsettia, feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Hope.it wasn't much. It wasn't a happy ending, but it was a beginning. Daniel and I started meeting every Tuesday morning at a coffee shop halfway between our houses. The first few meetings were awkward, painful. There was so much hurt to wade through, so much resentment on both sides. But slowly, week by week, we found our way back to something resembling a relationship. Not the one we'd had before that was gone forever, but something new, something more honest. He told me about his financial troubles, and I helped him make a budget. I told him about my fears of aging, and he listened without trying to fix everything. We talked about Bernard, about grief, about the ways we'd both been trying to outrun our pain by focusing on logistics and plans instead of feelings. I never wanted to replace Dad, he said one Tuesday in February. But I think I was trying to be the one who took care of you, who made everything okay. I forgot that you don't need taking care of. You need partnership, respect. I do need some help sometimes, I admitted. I'm not too proud to say that. My knees aren't what they used to be. I get tired more easily. There are jars I can't open and light bulbs I can't reach. But there's a difference between asking for help when I need it and being told I need it when I don't. How do we tell the difference? You ask me. It's that simple. You don't assume. You don't decide for me. You ask. He nodded, taking notes on his phone. Actually taking notes like a student trying to learn a difficult subject. I'm trying to teach Cameron that, he said, about respecting people's autonomy, about not assuming you know what's best for someone else just because you love them. I don't want him to make the same mistakes I did. That's good, I said. That's really good, Danny. In March, Rachel started joining us occasionally. She was quieter than Daniel, more careful, but I could see she was genuinely remorseful. They'd been married 15 years, and she'd trusted Michael's judgment as much as Daniel had. But she was working on thinking for herself now, questioning things instead of just going along. I let myself get swept up in the panic. She told me, Daniel would come home worried about you, and instead of calming him down or suggesting we talk to you directly, I'd feed into it. I'd add my own worries. Pretty soon we'd convinced ourselves you were one step away from disaster, and anything we did to prevent that disaster was justified. The road to hell, I said, paved with good intentions. She finished. I know. I'm sorry, Vivian. I should have been a voice of reason. I should have told Daniel to talk to you instead of about you. You should have. I agreed. But you're here now. That counts for something. By April, Cameron started coming too. He was 11, all elbows and awkward energy, obsessed with video games and YouTube. He didn't know the details of what had happened. Daniel and Rachel had wisely kept him out of it, but he knew there'd been a fight, that he hadn't seen his grandma in months. Dad says you're teaching him how to be honest, Cameron said one morning, apropos of nothing, while Daniel was in the bathroom and Rachel was ordering at the counter. Is he? I asked, surprised. Yeah, he says you're the bravest person he knows because you told the truth even when it was really hard and everyone got mad at you for it. I felt my eyes start to burn. That's very kind of him to say. He cries sometimes at night, Cameron continued, in that matter-of-fact way children have when discussing devastating things. I hear him. I think he's sad about Grandpa Bernard. And sad about you. But also maybe sad about himself. Probably all of those things, I said gently. Are you sad too? Yes, but I'm also hopeful. Your dad and I are figuring things out. It takes time. That's what Mom says. She says healing takes time and we have to be patient. Your mom is a smart woman. He grinned. She is. Dad's lucky he married her. Yes, he is. When Daniel came back from the bathroom, Cameron immediately started telling him about a new game he wanted, and the moment passed. But it stayed with me. The idea that Daniel was framing our reconciliation to his son not as his mother being difficult, but as a lesson in courage and honesty. Maybe he really was changing. Michael and Sarah, meanwhile, remained silent. I heard through Daniel that they were still angry, still convinced I'd overreacted. Michael had consulted his own lawyer about the APS complaint, but there was nothing to be done. I'd documented everything. I had evidence. The case was closed with no action taken against them, but it was on record. A permanent stain. Sarah had apparently tried to convince Daniel to cut me off too, to present a united front. When he refused, she'd accused him of being weak. of betraying the family. She said you've brainwashed me. Daniel told me one Tuesday that you're manipulating me the same way you accused us of manipulating you. What did you say? I told her that the difference is you're letting me make my own choices. You're not threatening me or pressuring me or lying to me. You're just being honest. And if she can't see the difference between that and what we did to you, then she's not as smart as I thought she was. That must have been hard to say. It was. She's my sister. I love her. But I can't pretend anymore that what we did was okay just because admitting it wasn't okay makes me uncomfortable. In May, I got a letter from Sarah. Not an email, not a text, but an actual handwritten letter on expensive stationery. It was short. Mom, I'm not ready to apologize yet. I'm still angry at you for recording us without our knowledge, for involving authorities, for making this whole thing so much bigger than it needed to be. But I'm also starting to understand, maybe, that you had reasons for feeling betrayed. Michael thinks I shouldn't even be writing this. He says you'll never forgive us anyway, so why bother trying? But I need you to know that I miss you. I miss my mom. Jeremy and Marcus miss their grandma. I don't know how to fix this. I don't even know if it can be fixed. But I wanted you to know I'm thinking about it. About you. About us. Sarahi read the letter 3 times. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't even an admission of wrongdoing. But it was something. A crack in the wall. I wrote back. Sarah, thank you for your letter. I miss you too. I miss all of you, even Michael, though I suspect he wouldn't believe that. You're right that I recorded you without your knowledge. You're right that I involved authorities. And you're right that it made everything bigger and messier. But you know what you're not acknowledging? I did those things in response to what you were doing to me. I was protecting myself. You want to be angry at me for how I responded to your betrayal. That's your right. But until you can admit that there was a betrayal to respond to, we're going to stay stuck. I love you. I love all my children. That never changed, even when I was at my angriest. But love doesn't mean accepting mistreatment. It doesn't mean letting you run over me just because we're family. When you're ready to have an honest conversation, not about what I did wrong, but about what all of us did wrong, I'm here. I'm always here. Mommy didn't hear back from her for weeks. Then, in early June, my phone rang. It was Sarah, Mom. Her voice was shaky. Can we talk? Really talk? Yes, I said. Yes, we can talk. She came over that afternoon. She sat in my kitchen, the same kitchen where this had all started, and she cried. Really cried. The kind of crying that comes from somewhere deep and painful. The kind that can't be prettied up or controlled. I convinced myself we were helping you, she sobbed. I kept telling myself that we were doing the right thing, that you just couldn't see it because you were in denial about aging. But the truth is, I was the one in denial. About what we were doing. About why we were doing it. Tell me why. I said, really why? She wiped her eyes with a napkin. Because I'm scared. I'm so scared, Mom. Of getting old. Of becoming irrelevant. Of losing myself the way I watched you lose Dad. Real estate is cutthroat. If you're not constantly producing, you're out. And I'm 45. I can feel myself slowing down. I can see younger agents getting the listings I used to get. And I thought if I could just get ahead financially, if I could have some cushion, I'd feel safer. So you decided to create that cushion from my house. Yes, and I know how that sounds. I know how awful it is. But I'd convinced myself you didn't really need the house, that you'd be happier in assisted living, that everyone would benefit. I made it noble in my head. A win-win. But really I was just taking from you to feel less afraid. At least you're being honest now. I'm trying. God, Mom. I'm really trying. I've been seeing a therapist. She's helping me understand all this stuff about my own aging anxiety and how it made me project onto you. How I assumed you were declining because I'm terrified of declining. How I wanted to control your aging process because I can't control my own. She looked at me with red, puffy eyes. I can't take back what I did. What we all did. But I want you to know I understand now. I understand that it was wrong. That we hurt you. That we betrayed your trust. And I'm so sorry. I reached across the table and took her hand. Her skin was still soft, still young. She had so many years ahead of her. So much time before she'd really understand what it was like to be 74 and alone and watching your children circle like vultures. But she was trying. That had to count for something. I forgive you, I said. She started crying again. Just like that? No, not just like that. I forgave Daniel after months of work, of honest conversation, of him proving he meant what he said. I'll forgive you the same way. This is just a start, Sarah. We have a long way to go. I know. I'm ready for that. Whatever it takes. We talked for 3 hours that day. About everything. About Bernard and how his death had shattered me in ways I'd been too proud to admit. About my own fears of aging, of becoming dependent, of losing myself. About her fears, her struggles, her marriage, her children. About Michael and his anger and his pride and his refusal to admit fault. He won't come around, she said. He's too stubborn. He thinks you owe him an apology for recording him and involving APS. Then he can keep thinking that, I said. I love him, but I won't apologize for protecting myself. He thinks you should apologize anyway. For the sake of the family. The family broke long before I picked up that recorder, Sarah. It broke the moment you all decided my home was more valuable than my autonomy. I just made the break visible. She nodded slowly. You're right. You're absolutely right. Over the summer, Sarah became a regular presence in my life again. Not like before. There was still wariness on both sides, still healing that needed to happen. But we were building something new, something more honest. She brought Jeremy and Marcus over, and they helped me in the garden. She stopped by without calling first, but only after asking if I was okay with that. She offered to help with heavy lifting and difficult tasks, but only after asking if I needed help, and she never, ever talked about the house. One Saturday in August, I was weeding the flower bed when a car I didn't recognize pulled into my driveway. A woman got out, mid-50s, professional clothes, carrying a briefcase. Mrs. Hargrove? She asked. Yes? My name is Lauren Chen. I'm a real estate agent. I heard your property might be coming on the market soon, and I wanted to introduce myself. I have several buyers who would be very interested in a lot this size. My stomach dropped. Who told you my property was coming on the market? She looked uncomfortable. I'm not at liberty to say, but I was given to understand that you'd be moving to assisted living soon and your family would be handling the sale. Michael. It had to be Michael. My property is not for sale, I said coldly. And it won't be. Not now. Not ever. As long as I'm alive. If my son contacted you, he was speaking out of turn. Your son? She looked confused. I wasn't contacted by please leave, Mrs. Hargrove. If I could just leave you my card, leave. Now. Or I'm calling the police for trespassing. She left, but not before putting her business card in my mailbox. I called Daniel immediately. Did you tell any real estate agents that my house was going on the market? What? No, Mom. I would never. Then Michael did. He's still pushing. He's still trying to force this. Jesus. I'll talk to him. Don't bother. He won't listen. He never does. That night, I got a text from an unknown number. You're going to regret this. You should have taken the easy way. I knew it was Michael, even though the number was blocked. I saved the text, added it to my folder of evidence, sent a copy to my lawyer, just in case. In September, something unexpected happened. I had a fall. I was carrying laundry down to the basement, missed a step, and tumbled down half a dozen stairs before catching myself on the railing. Nothing broken, thank God, but badly bruised. My hip, my shoulder, my pride. I sat on the basement floor for a long moment, testing my limbs, making sure everything worked. And then I started to laugh. Not because it was funny, but because I could imagine exactly what Michael would say if he found out. See, I told you so. She can't live alone. She's a danger to herself. I pulled up my phone and called Daniel. Danny, I need some help. I fell down the basement stairs. I'm okay. Nothing's broken, but I'm pretty shaken up. Can you come over? He was there in 20 minutes. He helped me up, checked me over, made me ice packs, called his doctor friend to ask if I needed to be seen. Do you want me to stay? He asked. Rachel and Cameron could come over too. We could all camp out here tonight. Make sure you're okay. No, I said. I'm fine. just sore. But Danny, thank you. Thank you for being here, for helping me, for not using this as ammunition. He looked confused. Ammunition? For the argument that I can't live alone, that I need to be in a facility, that you were right all along. Understanding dawned on his face. Mom, I fell down my own stairs last year, broke my toe. Does that mean I can't live in my own house? People fall. It happens. It doesn't mean you're incompetent or need to be put away. I hugged him then, held him tight while tears leaked down my face. I was so scared, I whispered, not of being hurt, but of giving you a reason to take this from me. I will never do that, he said fiercely. Never again. I promise you, Mom. This is your home. It's your choice, always. What if I do decline someday? What if I really do get to a point where I can't manage alone? Then we'll talk about it, honestly, together, and whatever we decide, it'll be your decision, with input you've asked for, not something imposed on you, okay? I said. Okay. The seasons turned. Autumn painted my trees in gold and red. Halloween came and went. Cameron dressed as some video game character I didn't recognize, and he insisted on trick-or-treating at my house first, even though it was out of their way. Thanksgiving approached. I planned to cook again to host, but this time, my guest list was shorter. Daniel, Rachel, Cameron, Sarah, her husband Tom, Jeremy and Marcus. 8 people instead of 23. Michael hadn't called, hadn't texted. The silence stretched between us like an ocean. 2 days before Thanksgiving, my doorbell rang. Late afternoon, already getting dark. It was Michael. He looked older than I remembered. Grayer, more tired. He held a bottle of wine, my favorite, a Malbec from a small vineyard Bernard and I had visited on our 40th anniversary trip. I don't expect you to let me in, he said. I don't even expect you to want to talk to me. But I need to say something, and I need you to hear it. I stood in the doorway, my hand on the door, ready to close it if necessary. I was wrong, he said, about all of it. The house, the manipulation, the gaslighting, the assumption that I knew better than you what you needed. I was wrong, and I'm sorry. I didn't respond, waited. I know sorry isn't enough, he continued. I know I broke something between us that might never be fixed, but I need you to know that I'm not the same person I was a year ago. I've been in therapy, a lot of therapy, working through my own stuff, control issues, fear of loss, this messed up idea that love means managing people for their own good. Why now? I asked. Why? After almost a year of silence, are you here now? He smiled sadly. Because yesterday was Dad's birthday, and I went to his grave, and I told him about everything that happened, about what I did to you. And I realized that if he were here, he'd be ashamed of me. He'd be on your side, telling me to get my head out of my ass and apologize to my mother. He would. I agreed. I miss him, Michael said, his voice cracking. I miss him so much it physically hurts. And I think I was trying to control you because I couldn't control his death. I couldn't keep him here. Couldn't save him. Couldn't do anything. So I focused all that energy on you, on keeping you safe, on managing your life, on making sure I wouldn't lose you too. But I lost you anyway, because of what I did. He wiped his eyes roughly, angry at his own tears. I sent that real estate agent to your house, he said. That was me. I was still holding on to this fantasy that you'd cave, that you'd realize we were right and you were wrong. I was an idiot, and I'm sorry. For that and for everything else. I looked at my oldest son, my firstborn, the baby who'd made me a mother, the boy who'd been so serious, so responsible, even as a child, who'd always tried to take care of everyone, to fix every problem, to be the strong one. And I saw what it had cost him. The weight of it. The burden of thinking he had to control everything to keep everyone safe. Come inside, I said. His face lit up with hope. Really? Come inside, I repeated. We'll open that wine, and then we're going to talk. Really talk. About Dad, about grief, about control, about everything. It'll probably be uncomfortable and painful. But if you're really serious about fixing this, that's where we start. I am, he said. I'm completely serious. We talked until midnight. We cried. We argued. We said things that needed to be said, even when they hurt. And slowly, painfully, we started to find our way back to each other. Thanksgiving was different that year. Smaller, quieter, but it was also more honest than any holiday we'd had in years. Michael was there, tentative but present. He'd asked permission to come, had brought food to contribute instead of just showing up expecting everything to be done for him, had thanked me 3 times for hosting. Sarah was relaxed in a way I hadn't seen in years. She laughed freely, didn't check her phone every 5 minutes, played with her boys without worrying about getting her clothes dirty. Daniel carved the turkey, a job that had always been Bernard's, and he did it with tears in his eyes, acknowledging the absence, the grief, the men we all missed. We went around the table and said what we were grateful for. When it was my turn, I said, I'm grateful for truth, even when it's hard, even when it hurts, because lies might feel safer in the moment, but they rot everything from the inside out. Truth is what lets us heal. Michael met my eyes. I'm grateful for second chances, and for a mother who's braver than I'll ever be. After dinner, after the dishes were done and the leftovers were packed up, we all sat in the living room. The kids were in the basement playing video games. The adults were scattered across the sofas and chairs, full and tired and content. Mom, Sarah said, we've been talking, the 3 of us, and we want to propose something. My guard went up. What kind of something? Not about the house, Daniel said quickly. About help. Real help. The kind you actually want and ask for. Michael leaned forward. We created a shared calendar. All 3 of us. We're scheduling regular times to check in, calls, visits, whatever you prefer. But we're also making it clear that these are offers, not obligations. If you don't want company on a particular day, you say so. If you need help with something specific, you tell us. But we stop assuming. We stop managing. We stop treating you like a problem to be solved. We want to be in your life as your children, Sarah added. Not as your caretakers or your handlers or your controllers. Just your children, who love you, who want to spend time with you, who are here if you need us. I looked at the 3 of them. My babies. My complicated, flawed, trying their best babies. I'd like that, I said. I'd really like that. It's been 2 years since that Thanksgiving. 2 years since the confrontation that almost destroyed our family. The house is still mine. I'm still living here, still managing fine, still competent and independent. I had a stair lift installed after the fall, not because anyone forced me, but because I decided it was a smart precaution. I have a medical alert button now too. Same reason. Michael calls every Sunday. We talk about his work, his daughter Sophia, who's applying to colleges now, his therapy progress. Sometimes we talk about hard things. Sometimes we just chat. But it's real. It's honest. Sarah stops by most Fridays with coffee and pastries from my favorite bakery. We sit in the garden when it's warm, in the kitchen when it's not. She tells me about her clients, her boys, her life. She asks my advice sometimes, but she doesn't always take it. That's okay. She's allowed to make her own choices, just like I am. Daniel and I still have our Tuesday morning coffee dates. Cameron joins us most weeks. He's 13 now, taller than me, his voice cracking when he gets excited. He taught me how to text with emojis. I taught him how to make Bernard's famous spaghetti sauce. I still have the recordings, all of them, backed up in multiple places. I don't listen to them anymore. I don't need to. They served their purpose. They protected me when I needed protecting. They proved I wasn't crazy, wasn't confused, wasn't declining. But more than that, they forced a reckoning. A painful, necessary reckoning with the truth of who we'd all become and what we'd been willing to do to each other. People ask me sometimes if I regret it. Recording my own children, confronting them with their betrayal, blowing up our family in such a dramatic way. The answer is no. Because here's what I learned. Families don't break from conflict. They break from dishonesty, from resentment that's never addressed, from hurt that's never acknowledged, from people pretending everything is fine when it's not. We almost broke. We came so close, but we didn't, because when it mattered most, we chose truth over comfort. We chose honesty over peace. We chose real healing over fake harmony. It wasn't easy. God knows it wasn't easy. There were days I thought I'd made a terrible mistake, that I should have just gone along with their plan. That maintaining the relationship at any cost would have been better than the pain of almost losing them. But I was wrong about that. Some costs are too high, and my dignity, my autonomy, my right to make my own choices about my own life, those were too high a cost. I'm 76 now, the same age Bernard was when he died. Sometimes I wonder how much time I have left. 5 years? 10? 15 if I'm lucky? However much time it is, I want to spend it living on my own terms, in my own house, making my own choices, accepting help when I need it and asking for it, but not having it forced on me. And most importantly, I want to spend it with people who love me for who I am, not for who they need me to be. People who trust me to know my own mind and respect me enough to be honest, even when honesty is hard. Last week, I was digging through some boxes in the attic and I found an old photo album. Pictures from when the kids were little. Michael at 5, missing his front teeth. Sarah at 3, covered in mud from head to toe. Daniel as a baby, so tiny he fit in one of Bernard's hands. I brought it downstairs and looked through it slowly, remembering all those early years when they needed me for everything. When I was their whole world. When they looked at me like I had all the answers. Somewhere along the way, that shifted. They stopped needing me and started feeling responsible for me. Started seeing me as the one who needed taking care of, who needed managing, who couldn't be trusted to know what was best for myself. Maybe that's natural. Maybe that's just what happens when children grow up and parents grow old. But it doesn't have to be a role reversal. It doesn't have to be a power grab. It can be a partnership, a mutual respect between adults who happen to be related. That's what we're building now. Slowly, imperfectly, but honestly. This morning, I worked in my garden. The roses Bernard planted for our 30th anniversary are blooming beautifully. The vegetable patch I put in last spring is producing tomatoes and peppers and zucchini faster than I can eat them. I'll make ratatouille tonight. Maybe invite Daniel and his family over to share it. Or maybe I'll just freeze it for later. It's my choice. And that simple fact that I get to choose still fills me with a fierce, proud joy. I'm not perfect. I forget things sometimes, actual forgetting, the kind that comes with age. I move slower than I used to. I need reading glasses for small print. I can't open jars as easily. I get tired earlier in the evening, but those are just facts of aging. They don't make me incompetent. They don't make me a burden. They don't mean I need to be put away somewhere for everyone else's convenience and financial gain. They just make me human, growing older, living my life one day at a time, with all the dignity and autonomy I can hold on to. And if the day comes when I really can't manage anymore, when I really do need more help than I can arrange on my own, then my children and I will have that conversation. Together, honestly, with my voice carrying the most weight, because it's my life we're talking about. But that day isn't today. Today, I'm fine. Today, I'm here. Today, I'm still Vivian Hargrove, living in the house I've called home for 40 years, tending my garden, cooking my meals, making my own choices, and the recorder, it's still in my drawer, charged and ready, just in case. Not because I don't trust my children, I do, mostly. In the careful way you trust someone who's hurt you but is working hard to do better, but because I've learned an important lesson. It's okay to protect yourself. It's okay to gather evidence. It's okay to prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. It's okay to remember that sometimes the people who love you most can also hurt you most. And that being family doesn't mean having unlimited access to your life, your choices, or your home. Love should make us freer, not smaller. It should expand our lives, not restrict them. And any love that requires you to diminish yourself, to doubt yourself, to surrender your autonomy, that's not love worth keeping. I hope I never need that recorder again. I hope my children have really learned, really changed, really understand now what they did and why it was wrong. But if I do need it, if they backslide, if they start up again with the manipulation and the managing and the plotting, I'll be ready, because I'm Vivian Hargrove. I'm 76 years old. I'm sharper than they think. I'm stronger than they realize. And I remember everything, every single thing. Epilogue. 3 years later, lawyer's office smelled like old books and lemon polish. I sat in a leather chair that was probably worth more than my first car, my hands folded in my lap, watching Mr. Peterson shuffle through papers on his mahogany desk. "Mrs. Hargrove," he said, looking up at me over his reading glasses, "I have to say, in 30 years of practicing estate law, I've never had a client quite like you. Is that a compliment?" I asked. He smiled. "It is. Most people your age either refuse to think about end-of-life planning, or they let their children do all the thinking for them. You've done neither. I learned the hard way that letting my children do my thinking for me doesn't work out well for anyone." He nodded, pulling out a thick document. "Well, your updated will and trust are ready for signing. Everything is exactly as you specified. Your assets are divided equally among your 3 children, with very specific conditions attached." "Read me the conditions again," I said. "I want to make sure we got it right." He cleared his throat and read, "Distribution of inheritance is contingent upon each beneficiary completing a minimum of 6 months of family therapy, both individual and group sessions, focused on issues of autonomy, respect for elders, and healthy family dynamics. Additionally, each beneficiary must write a detailed letter, minimum 2,000 words, reflecting on their treatment of the testator in the final years of her life, what they learned from the experience, and how they will honor her memory by treating others with dignity and respect. And if they refuse," I asked, "then their portion goes to charity, specifically to the Elder Justice Initiative, which provides legal aid to seniors experiencing financial abuse from family members." "Perfect." Mr. Peterson set down the document. "May I speak candidly, Mrs. Hargrove?" "Please." "This is brilliant. Punitive enough to make a point, but not so harsh as to be challenged in court. And the therapy requirement. That's not about punishment at all, is it?" "No," I said softly. "It's about healing. Real healing. The kind that takes professional help and hard work and honest self-reflection. I don't want them to inherit my money and my things and then just go back to their lives unchanged. I want them to actually process what happened, to really understand it, to be better. And if they've already changed, if they're already better, then 6 months of therapy will just reinforce those changes. It won't hurt them. It might even help them maintain the progress they've made." He nodded approvingly. "You've thought of everything. I've had a lot of time to think." After signing the papers, I drove to the cemetery. I hadn't been in a few weeks. The winter had been harsh, and my joints complained about the cold more than they used to. But today was Bernard's birthday. He would have been 79. I parked and walked slowly to his grave, carrying the flowers I'd picked up on the way. Daffodils, his favorite. "Hey, honey," I said, kneeling down to arrange the flowers in the built-in vase. "Sorry it's been a while, but I have news." The marble headstone gleamed in the afternoon sun. "Bernard James Hargrove, beloved husband and father, 19462022. I updated my will today," I continued. "Did something a little unconventional. You would have loved it. Or maybe you would have thought I was being too hard on them. I don't know. But I think you'd understand why I did it." A bird sang somewhere in the trees above me. The cemetery was peaceful, well-maintained. We'd picked out plots here together, years ago, before either of us really needed them. Planning ahead, being practical. They're doing better, you know. The kids, really better. Michael comes to Sunday dinner now, can you believe that? He brings Sophia, and we cook together. She's so much like Sarah was at that age. Smart and ambitious and absolutely terrified of failure. Sarah's boys are getting so big. Jeremy's starting to think about colleges. Marcus wants to be a marine biologist. Remember when Sarah wanted to be a marine biologist? Before she decided there was more money in real estate? And Danny's doing really well. The dealership turned around. He took some business classes, learned some new strategies. But more than that, he's just lighter, happier, like he's not carrying the weight of the world anymore. I sat back on my heels, my knees protesting. "I miss you so much," I whispered, "every single day. But I'm proud of how I handled this, how I stood up for myself. You always said I was stronger than I thought I was. I finally believe you." I stayed there for a while longer, talking to him about small things. The garden, the book I was reading, the new restaurant Daniel had discovered. All the ordinary details of life that Bernard was no longer part of, but that I still wanted to share with him. When I finally left, the sun was lower in the sky, painting everything gold that evening. I was making dinner when my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, but I'd learned to not be alarmed by unexpected visits anymore. My children had gotten much better about calling first. It was Michael, but not alone. He had a young woman with him, late 20s, professional clothes, nervous smile. "Mom," he said, "this is Dr. Rachel Kim. She's a gerontologist. I was hoping we could talk to you about something." My stomach dropped. Here it comes, I thought. After 3 years of good behavior, here comes the next attempt. "What kind of something?" I asked, not inviting them in yet. "A research study," Dr. Kim said. "I'm conducting a long-term study on successful aging and autonomy preservation in elderly adults. Your son told me about your situation, about what happened with your family and how you navigated it. I'd love to interview you, if you're willing. Your experience could help inform better practices for protecting senior rights." I looked at Michael. "You told her about the recordings?" "I told her everything," he said. "The whole story. What we did. What you did. How it all played out. I thought maybe something good could come from it. Maybe other families could learn from our mistakes." I studied his face, looking for the catch, the angle, the hidden agenda. There wasn't one. He was being sincere. "Come in," I said. We sat in the living room, not the kitchen this time, and Dr. Kim pulled out a tablet and a consent form. "This would be a series of interviews," she explained. "Maybe 4 or 5 sessions, an hour each. I'd ask about your experience, your decision-making process, the outcomes. Everything would be anonymized for publication, of course. But your story could be incredibly valuable to other seniors facing similar situations, and to medical professionals," Michael added. "Dr. Kim is trying to develop better screening tools for family coercion and financial exploitation. Better ways to identify when seniors are being manipulated versus when they genuinely need support." "Why now?" I asked. "Why do this now? After 3 years?" Michael looked uncomfortable. "Because I was at a conference last month, a medical ethics conference, and there was a whole panel about elder autonomy and family dynamics. And I kept thinking about you, about what we did, about how close we came to really hurting you, not just emotionally but legally, financially, in every way." He leaned forward, earnest. "I don't want other families to make our mistakes, Mom. And I don't want other seniors to have to go through what you went through, having to record their own children just to protect themselves. If your story can help change how doctors and lawyers and families approach these situations, then something good comes from all that pain." I looked at Dr. Kim. "What would you do with the information?" "Publish it in academic journals," she said. "Use it to train healthcare providers and social workers. Maybe eventually develop it into educational materials for seniors and their families. The goal is to shift the conversation from 'when should we take over' to 'how do we support autonomy while also ensuring safety.' That's a conversation worth having," I said slowly. "So you'll do it?" Michael asked. "On one condition." "What's that?" "You participate too. All 3 of you, Sarah, and Daniel. If we're going to tell this story, we tell all of it. My perspective and yours. What you were thinking, what I was thinking. How we both got to such a terrible place and how we found our way back. The whole truth." Michael hesitated. "That means admitting to everything we did. On the record. In academic literature that anyone can read." "Yes, that's not going to be easy." "No," I agreed. "It's not. But if you really want something good to come from this, if you really want to help other families, then they need to see all of it. The ugly parts especially." He took a deep breath. "Okay, I'll talk to Sarah and Daniel, but I think they'll agree. We've all been doing the work. We're all in a better place. Maybe it's time to use that for something bigger than just us." Dr. Kim was smiling. "This is wonderful. A multi-perspective case study like this is incredibly rare. Most of the time I only get one side of the story." "Well," I said, "you're going to get the whole story. Every side. Every mistake. Every hard lesson. All of it." The interviews took place over the next 2 months. Dr. Kim came to my house, set up her recording equipment. I appreciated the irony. And asked me questions for hours at a time. She asked about my marriage, about Bernard's death, about the early signs that my children were plotting. She asked about my decision to start recording, about the confrontation, about the aftermath. What was the hardest part? She asked during our third session, accepting that they weren't monsters, I said. That they were good people who'd convinced themselves they were doing the right thing. It would have been easier, in some ways, if they'd been purely malicious. But they weren't. They were scared and selfish and short-sighted, but they also genuinely loved me. Those things coexisted. That was hard to reconcile. Do you think you could have handled it differently? Looking back, I thought about it. Maybe if I'd been more open about my own fears of aging, they wouldn't have had to project their fears onto me. Maybe if I'd asked for help with small things, they wouldn't have assumed I needed help with everything. Maybe if we'd had better communication after Bernard died, none of this would have escalated the way it did. But you don't regret recording them? No, because by the time I started recording, we were past the point of good communication. They'd already decided I was declining. They'd already started building their case. I needed evidence to protect myself. I needed proof that I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't imagining the manipulation. The recordings gave me that. And now? How are things now? I smiled. Better. Not perfect. There are still moments when one of them slips into old patterns suggesting I'm too old for something, or making decisions without asking me first. But now we can call it out. We can say, hey, that felt like the old dynamic. And we can correct course. That's remarkable progress. It's hard-won progress. We all worked for it. We all earned it. Michael's interview happened at his office in Manhattan. Sarah's at a coffee shop near her office. Daniel's at our usual Tuesday morning spot. Dr. Kim shared some of their comments with me afterward, with their permission. Michael, I thought I was protecting her, but really, I was protecting myself from the fear of losing her. And in trying to control that fear, I almost lost her anyway. That's the thing I wish I'd understood earlier, that control isn't protection. Sometimes it's just another form of harm, Sarah. I looked at my mother and saw everything I was afraid of becoming. Invisible, irrelevant, diminished. So I tried to take control of her aging process before it could happen to me. Like if I could manage her decline, I could somehow prevent my own. It was magical thinking. Destructive magical thinking. Daniel, I went along with it because I trusted my siblings more than I trusted myself. Michael seemed so sure. Sarah seemed so convinced. I buried my doubts because it felt safer to be part of the group than to stand alone. I'll regret that for the rest of my life, that I chose comfort over courage when my mother needed me to be brave. Hearing their words, reading their reflections, I felt something I hadn't expected. Compassion. Not forgiveness, I'd already given them that. But a deeper understanding of how we'd all failed each other in different ways. How we'd all let fear drive us to places we never should have gone. 6 months after the interviews began, Dr. Kim called me with news. I've been invited to present your case study at the National Symposium on Elder Rights, she said, excitement clear in her voice. It's one of the biggest conferences in the field. Thousands of attendees, doctors, lawyers, social workers, policymakers. Would you be willing to come? To tell your story in person? Me? Speak at a conference? You and your children if they're willing. A panel discussion. The impact would be so much greater if people could hear directly from you. I thought about it. Standing in front of thousands of strangers, telling them about the worst period of my life. About my children's betrayal and my own desperate self-protection. Yes, I said. I'll do it. But let me talk to the kids first. That Sunday, I had all 3 of them over for dinner. After we ate, I told them about Dr. Kim's invitation. It's asking a lot, I said. Standing up in public and admitting what happened. Being identified as the family who almost destroyed themselves over greed and fear. But I think it could matter. I think it could help people. They looked at each other. Some silent communication passing between them. I'm in, Michael said. If there's even a chance that our story prevents one other family from going through this, it's worth it. Me too, Sarah said. I'm tired of carrying shame about it anyway. Maybe talking about it openly will help with that. Count me in, Daniel added. Besides, Cameron asked me last week what we learned from the big fight with Grandma, if I can talk to my 13-year-old son about it. I can talk to a room full of professionals. So we did. 3 months later, we stood on a stage in front of 2,000 people and told our story. Dr. Kim moderated, asking questions, guiding the narrative. Michael talked about his need for control. Sarah discussed her aging anxiety. Daniel admitted his moral cowardice in going along with the plan. And I talked about the recorder, about the moment I realized I needed to protect myself, about the confrontation, about the long, painful road to rebuilding trust. What advice would you give to other seniors in similar situations? Someone from the audience asked. Document everything, I said without hesitation. If your gut tells you something's wrong, trust that instinct. Gather evidence. Protect yourself. It feels awful to have to do that with your own family, but it's better than being gaslit into doubting your own mind and to adult children worried about aging parents. Michael fielded that one. Ask. Don't assume. Offer help. Don't impose it. And for God's sake, examine your own motives. Are you really worried about their safety? Or are you worried about your inheritance, your convenience, your own fears? Be honest with yourself about what's really driving you. The applause when we finished was overwhelming. Afterwards, dozens of people came up to us. Seniors thanking me for speaking up. Adult children admitting they recognized themselves in my children's story. Professionals asking for more information, more resources, more guidance. One woman, probably in her 80s, gripped my hand with tears in her eyes. My daughter has been doing exactly what your children did, she whispered, telling me I'm confused, that I'm forgetting things I'm not forgetting. I thought I was going crazy, but you've shown me I'm not. Thank you. Thank you for giving me permission to trust myself. I hugged her tight. Trust yourself, I said. And if you need to, protect yourself. There's no shame in that. That night, back in our hotel rooms, my children and I ordered room service and ate together in my suite. That was intense, Sarah said, picking at her salad. Worth it though, Daniel said. Did you see how many people came up to us? How many people said our story helped them? Mom, Michael said quietly, I need to tell you something. My stomach clenched. What? Sophia, my daughter, she's been having some issues with her roommates. They've been taking her things, using her credit card without asking, pressuring her to let them copy her homework. She didn't want to tell me because she felt like it made her weak. He paused, emotion thick in his voice. But after today, after hearing you talk about trusting your instincts and protecting yourself, she called me. She told me everything. And she said, Grandma's right. I need to stand up for myself. Even if it's hard. Even if it costs me these friendships. His eyes were wet. You didn't just save yourself, Mom. You taught us how to teach our children to save themselves. That's bigger than I realized. I reached across the coffee table and took his hand. That's all I ever wanted. For you to be strong enough to stand up for yourselves and wise enough to respect when others do the same. We're getting there, Sarah said. Slowly. But we're getting there. I'm 79 now. The same age Bernard was when he died. I still live in my house. Still manage fine. Still have all my faculties, despite what my children once tried to claim. But I've also learned to accept help more gracefully. When Michael offered to install grab bars in my bathroom, I said yes. When Sarah suggested I get a meal delivery service for nights when I'm too tired to cook, I agreed. When Daniel wanted to set up a video doorbell so I could see who's there before opening the door, I let him. The difference is, they're asking, they're offering, they're respecting my autonomy even as they support my needs. That's the balance we've found. That's the relationship we've rebuilt, Dr. Kim's study was published last year in a major gerontology journal. It's been cited dozens of times already. She's working on a book now, expanding on the research, featuring our story more prominently. You're going to be famous, Daniel joked when she told us. I'm going to be in Cautionary Tale, I corrected. But if it helps people, I'll take it. The lawyer called last week. Mrs. Hargrove, I wanted to let you know that your will is coming up for its annual review. Do you want to make any changes? I thought about it. About the therapy requirements. About the reflection letters. About the conditions I'd put on my children's inheritance. No, I said. Keep it as is. They might be better now, but that doesn't mean they don't still need to process what happened. The therapy requirement stays. Understood, After I hung up, I thought about what I'd want my children to know when I'm gone. Not the legal documents and financial details, those were handled. But the real things, the important things. I opened my laptop and started typing. To my children, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And I hope you're not reading it too soon. I plan to stick around for a while yet. By now, you've learned about the therapy requirement in my will. I know you might be angry about that. You might think it's manipulative or controlling or ironic, given what I fought against. But here's what I want you to understand. I didn't require therapy to punish you. I required it because I love you. Because what we went through together revealed fractures in all of us, not just in our relationships with each other, but in our relationships with ourselves. Michael, you need to learn that you can't control everything, and that trying to do so will only push away the people you love most. Sarah, you need to understand that aging is not diminishment, and that your worth isn't measured by your productivity or your appearance or your ability to keep up with people half your age. Daniel, you need to find the courage to stand up for what you believe in, even when the people you love are asking you to go along with something wrong. These aren't weaknesses. They're human struggles. We all have them. The question is whether we face them honestly or let them control us. The therapy requirement isn't about making you jump through hoops to get my money. It's about giving you a gift, the gift of self-examination, of healing, of becoming the people I always knew you could be. I've already forgiven you. I forgave you years before I died. But forgiveness isn't the same as healing. Healing requires work. It requires honesty. It requires the courage to look at the worst parts of yourself and decide to do better. That's what I want for you. Not perfection. Not endless guilt. Just honest work toward being better people, better parents, better partners, better human beings. I love you. I always have. Even when I was angry, even when I was hurt, even when I was fighting to protect myself from you, I loved you. But love isn't enough. Love has to be paired with respect, with honesty, with the willingness to see each other clearly and stand together anyway. That's what I hope you'll find in therapy. That's what I hope you'll carry forward. Not just for yourselves, but for your children and their children. Break the cycle. Be better. You have everything you need to do that. You've already proven it. Now just keep going. With all my love. Mommy saved the file and added it to the folder my lawyer would give them after I died, along with the recordings, all of them, so they could hear exactly what had happened, exactly what had been said, with no room for misremembering or revision. The truth preserved. For them. For history. For anyone who might need it. This morning, I was working in my garden when I heard a car pull up. I looked up to see a young woman getting out, 30s, tired looking, with a toddler on her hip and an older child trailing behind her. "Can I help you?" I called. "Are you Vivian Hargrove?" she asked. "I am. I'm Jennifer. I read about you. The study, the conference talk. My mother-in-law is trying to do the same thing to me that your kids tried to do to you. She's telling everyone I'm an unfit mother, that I'm unstable, that my kids aren't safe with me. She's talking to lawyers about grandparents' rights. And I'm terrified." She started crying. "But then I read your story, and I thought if you could stand up to your own children, maybe I can stand up to my husband's mother. Maybe I can protect myself and my kids." I set down my trowel and walked over to her, took her free hand in both of mine. "You can," I said. "You absolutely can. Do you have documentation?" I started keeping a journal, writing down everything she says, everything she does. "Good. Add recordings if you can. Check your state's laws first. Make sure you're doing it legally. Get a lawyer. Talk to your pediatrician and your kids' teachers. Make sure they know you're a fit parent. Build your defense before you need it." "I feel so guilty," she whispered. "Like I should just try harder to get along with her. Like fighting back makes me the bad guy." "Listen to me," I said firmly. "Standing up for yourself doesn't make you the bad guy. Protecting your children doesn't make you the bad guy. You are allowed to set boundaries. You are allowed to defend yourself. And you are allowed to do it without guilt." She hugged me then. This stranger who'd driven to my house because my story had given her hope after she left. I sat in my garden and felt something I hadn't expected. Purpose. My story mattered. Not just to me, not just to my family, but to people I'd never meet. People who needed to know that standing up for yourself was possible, that survival was possible, that you could lose almost everything and still build something new and real and honest from the ashes. That's what I'd done. That's what we'd all done. Really, my children and I, together. We'd faced the worst of ourselves and each other. We'd stood in the wreckage of our family and decided to rebuild. Not to go back to what we were, that was impossible, but to create something new. Something stronger. Something honest. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. There were still hard days. Still moments when old hurts resurfaced. Still times when we frustrated each other or disappointed each other or simply didn't understand each other. But we kept showing up. We kept trying. We kept choosing honesty and respect and repair over the easier path of pretending everything was fine. And that, I've learned, is what real love looks like. Not the greeting card version, not the social media version, but the messy, complicated, hard-won version. The version that requires you to be brave enough to tell the truth, even when it costs you. The version that requires you to be strong enough to protect yourself, even from the people you love most. The version that requires you to be humble enough to admit when you're wrong and patient enough to forgive when others admit the same. That's the love we have now. Imperfect, hard-earned, real, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. Tonight, I'll make dinner. Maybe I'll call Daniel and invite him over. Or maybe I'll eat alone, reading a book, enjoying the quiet of my own company. Either way, it'll be my choice. And that simple fact, that freedom, that autonomy, that respect for my right to decide my own life, that's worth everything I fought for. The recorder is still in my drawer, still charged, still ready, but I don't think about it the way I used to. It's not a weapon anymore, not a shield. It's just insurance, a reminder that I have the power to protect myself if I need to. I hope I never need to, but if I do, I'm ready. I'm Vivian Hargrove. I'm 79 years old. I live in my own home, on my own terms, with my own choices. And I remember everything, every lesson, every hard truth, every moment of pain and every moment of healing. I remember it all, and I'm grateful for every bit of it, even the worst parts. Because those worst parts taught me who I really am: strong, brave, worthy of respect, and absolutely, completely free.